Welcome to another episode of Behind the Build. Today we have Elijah Lomaka, who is the founder and CEO of Relay Wireless. Relay Wireless is an all-in-one platform to manage, operate, and scale wireless networks. Elijah, glad to have you on, buddy. If you want to just start with some background, introduction.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Sean and Steve. Super nice to be here and excited to talk about what both of our teams building at XNet and Relay is like super well aligned and everything's happening in DUI, DEPIN, however you want to call it these days. It's so many different abbreviations. Starting with some background on me, I come from enterprise product design background, so most of my work has been in building enterprise software for different industries. Also done quite a lot of consumer software as well, consumer software as well. So like I got both of the worlds, but just so it happened, mostly worked on enterprise side of things and really got throughout my career, really got down to these, like when you build enterprise software, you essentially have two ways of doing it. You can either keep pushing the complex agenda and keep building complex interfaces, or you can start basically trying to simplify everything that you build, because enterprises are usually a lot more complex than consumers. And consumer software, so it happened, is really well driven by, I think, Apples and Googles of the world. I know, Steve, you've been at Google, so you definitely know how everyone's trying to simplify and make it simpler. While on enterprise side, it's not always happening. So it's been like throughout my career, I've been really trying to master this art of, especially being in design, like how do you get fewer clicks? How do you get faster to the correct actions? How do you build interfaces that enable enterprises just be more cost efficient, more action efficient, and just get to what they need to do as fast as possible? And I started in DY back in 2019, 2020 when I was at Logitech. We had a couple of projects that were on the edge between hardware and software. You guys know that Logitech has a pretty big lineup of hardware products, and I was on a software team, and so it happened that guys were building a moving hardware piece, and we all know this situation that you walk one street of San Francisco, you have perfect coverage, then you turn around and you're blacked out. And as a human, you can take your phone, you can find the direction where you get some bars, but as a machine, it's much harder for the machine to understand to go find that coverage. So the question was like, okay, how do you provide that ubiquitous connectivity for the machine to never go blacked out? And the team was basically exploring different opportunities and what technologies to use. And Helium was at the inception point at that moment, starting to go public with ICO and everything that we're doing. And it was very interesting use case for LoRaWAN being decentralized. So I always been very cautious with like going into crypto, because crypto in the beginning felt very speculative. It's like just all of the DeFi stuff. I get you want to kill banks and like make it so everyone has access to everyone, but like it's gonna take years. And when I saw Helium and decentralized wireless at large, it really was the first time when I saw the real application of what blockchain and decentralization can do to real world technologies, right? And thinking about the idea how you could potentially simplify all of these hardware pieces, so pretty much my mom and my grandma can go and deploy them on their rooftops, right? And then provide coverage for every day, all of us, right? With demand is going so high, everyone's using so much bandwidth these days. It felt really natural and felt like a great opportunity for blockchain to get integrated into the real world. And also the idea of it being tokenized and people have like natural incentives to go and build it was really something that got me super interested. So that's how the whole Relay thing started. We just basically went in with a couple of my friends, deployed about 250 devices across 5-6 countries, early days Helium IoT devices. And then essentially we hit the wall with the idea of like, how can we manage all of this at scale? It was really painful. We used spreadsheets, we used third-party apps. We had to be very hacky. And it was just 250 devices. There's companies like You guys at XNet, you guys want to say at Hexagon, you build out a lot more coverage. Others like Emirates of the world that build out thousands of devices, and that's just within DY. So we sort of started looking at larger traditional telecom and how things were built in traditional world of telecommunications, and we realized that it's actually super painful for all these ISPs and WISP companies and telecommunication carriers to build out these networks in the efficient way. Most of them are using internal software, or they run on like multiple third-party applications. Very often they're not wireless native, and it just makes the whole process not cost efficient, painful, long. And I've been watching the previous episode you guys did with Miguel, and he called it a big puzzle. I guess I think that's what he used. So when you want to deploy that network, you're doing a big puzzle, and at the end of the day, you're relying on humans to do that. So we're really trying to answer the question of how you can automate and optimize this process through software, because it's no longer 1999 when everything was starting to build out. Software is at the very mature stage, and you can build great applications to allow a much easier and a more efficient way to build out these wireless networks.
Yeah, I could totally sympathize with that. Managing hundreds of assets, your tool set starts to include lots of random hacky things like custom scripts, and spreadsheets, and maybe some purpose-built software. And it's a big spaghetti mess, and you lose focus on the key metrics, the key performance of the fleet, and you lose focus on where the problems are. And so that's never a good thing. Maybe give us a sense of your thesis. So you're building software for people who deploy a lot, and DPIN is also appealing to sort of weekend warriors, the onesie twosie, friends and family type deployers. So what's your thesis on why? What role do big deployers play in this world, in contrast with smaller onesie twosie? Maybe give us a little mindset there.
That's a great question, Steve. So it's good to say that we only work with large scale deployers. Really, as a platform that's solely serving on the Helium side, we classify large deployer as someone who has about 100 plus IoT devices and say 5 to 25 plus 5G sites. And obviously other projects like XNet and the ones that are coming soon will have slightly different classifications based on their requirements. But we are solely only working with large scale deployers, because we believe large scale deployers is the key most important user group in DY that's going to drive adoption and build out all of these networks. I think there's a lot of wishful thinking in crypto world, because crypto is so driven by like general people, or people, punks that want to change the world, and there's definitely that application 100%. And I think that onesie twosies, as you call them, there's people like Crystal King, for instance. Like I think he's a great role model in this way, where that dude, he's a savage in all these technical things. He'll love to poke around. He'll love to build out these smaller things and projects, and just be hands down on all of that infrastructure and figure it out. But it's really, as I said, it's a wishful thinking to think that my mom will, go and figure it out herself, right? So that's why we believe that, similar to what happened in traditional wireless, where I would say 90% of the networks are accounted to telecommunication carriers, right? Like your AT&Ts and Verizons. I don't say that's going to exactly happen the same way in DY, where there's going to be like 3 companies, because that's exactly what we're trying to avoid here. But I say that definitely there's going to be hundreds and thousands of, and that's what actually I think DY did, is allowed a much broader spectrum of organizations just come in and put a lot less capital and to build out all of these and just become the ISP or WISP themselves. But it still has the bottleneck. There's a big bottleneck of actually deploying the network and then maintaining that network, especially given all of the early days of DY, where everything has to be maintained. Unlike traditional world that's very stable in many cases, you just deploy your hardware and you rarely maintain it or upgrade it whenever cycle comes. In DY, you have to deal with all of the issues and flush out a lot of bugs and go to those sites, and it's just slightly it's delusional to think that consumers will drive that, unless there's a big shift and change. Like for instance, like Helium is trying to push these smaller consumer-oriented hotspots that just plug into your outlet at home. On the mobile coverage side, you guys are deploying these huge radios like every day, at XNet. Like it's really it's just delusional to think that general people will go and build out those radios in their rooftops. Now, I think that going back to your podcast with Miguel, you said very interesting thing there that, for instance, XNet is not just about these organizations building out all of these complex networks. XNet is also about enabling communities in specific use cases, in covering their problematic areas. And I think that's probably, like, I would classify it this way, that probably most of the coverage will be built out by, DY ISPs or WISPs, just organizations that will drive, say, 50, 100, 200 plus sites of the connectivity that will be maintained, that will be up to the standard. It's especially important at your network, guys, and I think that's why it's going to be so successful, because you're keeping it up to a standard and not just throwing coverage because of earnings into whatever place it can be. Or the other way it's going to be largely driven is by people who actually have problems in underserved areas, and they can deploy a certain amount of radios. And it's still not going to be one radio. It's going to be a cluster of radios. It's going to be like a specific small network that's going to exist in that community. So at Relay, we're seeing that, and we're all about fundamentals really at this stage. So we ask we ask ourselves who's going to be the driven force and build out all of these networks, and how we can help as a platform. That's why we have super narrow focus just on the people who are actually serious about it, to the highest extent possible. And the most serious group of builders are large scale deployers. People who are in it not just for earnings or like whatever staking. They're in it for actual coverage and actual solving problems longer term. People that will maintain, that will not give up after 3 months of trying. And that plays out super well in our side, because we have maybe 50 to 100 companies using the platform, and it's simple for our team to keep up with all of the feedback, work with every individual deployer specifically to understand their use cases. And I think that's something that we did really well with Hexagon Wireless, for instance. We just got on the line with them and started asking questions, and they gave us feedback, and we were able to execute that feedback swiftly, rather than having application that could be used by anyone, and never get a chance to really fix larger important things.
No, I think we echo that vision, kind of, Elijah, that you just said. I think enterprise deployers, I think we share the vision. I think Masari has had a post about it. I know Relay is very aligned with it, but in a way, right? Like when DY first started, at least in the CBRS mobile game, like obviously each segment's a bit different due to just kind of technicals, but when mobile started, it was like, all right, we can put this shit up anywhere we want, right? And we can build a mobile network. Everything will be great. We're going to eliminate Verizon. But then I think the space quickly realized that that's not really how it works. And I think the XNet approach is, I think like the fundamental, like when a rock hits the water, right? The initial point of impact, it has to be made by enterprise deployers, whether that be the Hexagons, whether that be ISPs, WISPs, because just like the teams they have, the understanding and knowledge they have of the space, I think the key things is you need to build something serious. So again, the metrics of uptime, throughput, having the adequate backhaul. I think building that proper base when the rock hits the water is essentially important. And then I think the community can literally blow it up outside, because then we can go and be like, here, you can put up a 430 or a smaller end radio inside your house. But even maybe the person that brings it to a community and all these houses will also kind of need this enterprise management software, right? Because say I walk around the apartment and put one in like neighboring apartments, I could easily get to 50 radios. And at the end of the day, the end user doesn't want to have to deal with any of that stuff. So I definitely see the potential that Relay has. And I think that kind of bridges me to the next question. We talked about kind of the deployment side and the management of the metrics, how that's important for success in this space. But I think another key thing, not just for DY, I think DPIN and crypto in general, that's kind of a hurdle, but I'm glad to know that you guys are solving it at Relay, Elijah, is everyone talks about it always, right? The crypto to fiat off ramp. Like, I feel like it's just a statement these days. Like, people talk about it. I know multiple teams are building stuff for it, but it's like that example I gave of, all right, I want to go across the street and put something in my apartment. These people know nothing about crypto, and we don't want them to, essentially, right? Because maybe that results in them not deploying. So how does Relay view the crypto to fiat off ramp issue, and what are you guys doing to, like, how do you view it basically? How do you build something like that at scale?
Yeah, and I think that really pairs well with something that you were talking about just a second ago. I wanted to expand to that a little bit before I go into the crypto to fiat off ramp issue. That I think that there's also, and something that I really like what you're doing, guys, at XNet, is that they're also like, why do you reinvent the wheel? You have this market of, like, say, 4,000 ISPs in the United States, right? Which you can go partner with most of these companies and then have them build out the coverage on top of their existing sites, for instance. That would be very simple build out sort of approach, right? Go to market, as you may say, with your network. And I think that you can run in circles and try to create all these fancy tokenomics and get people to earn tokens and all of that stuff. But at the end of the day, you want to have that high-end coverage, and that high-end coverage could be built out by people that actually build other high-end coverage before that, because they already did that. So I think that that's what especially we're going to be seeing, like, over the next couple of years, is this great trend of traditional wireless buying into DY. Because DY economics, at the end of the day, they make most sense. In traditional world, you have to sort of, that's why there's so many underserved areas, because you don't have incentive to build out there, right? But with DY, that's sort of covered through tokenomics, and you can have that initial incentive that eventually transition into being a real business that brings revenue. So I think that's going to be super important. That's what's going to drive majority of the adoption on the network side. These traditional wireless buying into DY and building out most of the coverage. Would that be on their own sites or new sites? Those people know how to do it, and they will get to the leads. Going back to your questions, Sean, around the crypto to fiat off ramp, I think that's one of the key things, and that's certainly something that we saw early days with Relay when we were just deploying and sort of trying to understand the market ourselves with the old Helium IoT devices. Just to give you some context, we actually, me and my friends, we sort of like understood right away that if we wanna, like, we had this interesting model where we had no employees in the company, and we went like partner to host model. It's the way we called it. And the way it worked is that we would find basically two types of people in local communities. Ones that would be more hands-on and would want to dedicate more time, and those people we would call partners, and we would task them to do some sort of general maintenance on the devices and infrastructure. And the other type of people we just host to provide locations. Sometimes partner can do both, right? And so it happened that most of the people never wanted to do anything with crypto, because crypto is a scam for a lot of them, and they don't understand, the difference. And it's still, adoption is still early for all the blockchain. Us geeks, we understand how beautiful it is and what it brings to the world. But a lot of people, I agree with Sean, that don't want to deal with it. So that was one of the key sort of one of the key pieces of functionality that we built early on. And it's done in a very simple way, right? Like I don't want to. Something that I tell everyone who comes to Relay is that Relay is in beta, and we're really about solving fundamentals. I think we said this on this show, and that means we just make simple systems at this stage that solve those problems, and we don't want to overcomplicate that solution so everyone can come in and sign underneath it and say, okay, what, this sounds logical, super simple model, we can do that. So for instance, with Helium, it's just in taking data, calculating that data, swapping that data, literally just data. You're not actually swapping anything on chain, and then just sending it to banking system in fiat currency, and then processing that either international or domestically here. So it's just I think that our company is very Web2 grounded in many ways, and I think it's actually a big plus for us, especially when it comes to enterprises. People have hard time changing between eras in enterprise software, and giving this simple, understandable, and easy way for them to understand how the payouts actually work, 0 to 1, without anything fancy being done on chain and like all of the stuff, behind the wheel, where like you're giving demo, you have to actually get person up to speed with like Polygon or like Solana. Like you want to avoid all of those things. You want to come to talk to that administrator and say, hey, look, it works really simple. It's just data. You have really literally nothing's happening. Like you can stop at any point, and then once you're actually ready, you can go and process it in your bank, your own self. So it's all very transparent and controlled by you.
Right on. Well, I think, I'd love to see a demo. I think we can
Absolutely
give us a quick run through of the Relay interface.
Yeah, because there's always that question. I was recently presenting at like a tech kind of startup event here, and it was mostly kind of older people, not blockchain friendly. But like it all made sense. Like you have this like line upward graph of like where they're following you one-to-one. Everything makes sense. The spectrum, the technology makes sense. But then you get to like the token part, and then like at that part, they're like, I would just prefer cash. And then I'm going back and forth, like explaining the token and like why the token makes more sense. But at the end of the day, if they don't even want to hear it, then like I guess we'll see your demo about it, right? Like I think that's like a leg we got to surpass here in DY. So
no, absolutely. A couple of things before we jump in. So the platform is in beta. As I said, it's privately available for large scale deployers. So if you're a large scale deployer and having hard times operating your fleet, feel free to DM us, jump on our site and schedule a demo with us. It could be rough on edges sometimes, so just appreciate your understanding, guys. And it's also serving just Helium at the moment. We're working on enabling other great projects like XNet. So some things would be just Helium specific, just to put that out. Let me share my screen. Can you guys see my screen?
Yep.
There we go.
So something that I said that it sort of echoes throughout the platform is that we're trying to build a very simple product here. Wireless is in itself very complex, technical industry, and we just don't see the need for the software that runs wireless to be also complex. And it's something that I take a lot of pride in. And I'm very proud of our team, is that we're just really trying to be super simple and super straightforward with all of the interfaces we're building. So, and here you can see that you have very straightforward interface with your sidebar that leads you to most of the important sections as a deployer. Here's your payout reports, payments. You can track your wallets. There's some dashboard metrics in here. You have your user base, which contains of organizations and your users. Deployments area of your business, where you can view your locations, devices. You can configure your organization through settings, and then you have a bunch of actions that you can take on the platform. Something worth explaining is that payouts are powered by mainly 4 of these below tabs: organizations, users, locations, and devices. The way we're doing it, and again, it's trying to the idea here is to be super simple, right? Is just give an organization the way to lay out all of the data in a simple, understandable way. So add your users. Let's go to Adriano here, for instance, right? I've added Adriano. Give it a second to load. That's the beta stuff, guys. I can see all of the Adriano's details. I can see data associated with Adriano, their Helium devices associated with them. I can set commissions for Adriano that will then power the payout report. I can see payment methods of Adriano. Adriano's paid in fiat, as you can see here. I can see different balances that are internal to every organization that runs and really have its own internal ledger, and these balances reflected. So basically, you can keep track of all the transactions that your organization had in previous, throughout your entire history, even pre-relay, because we have the ability to import that if you need it. And some things like notes and logs. You can go into locations, do pretty much the same thing. As you can see, we have a lot of sites in Portugal. Portugal is like mother of DUI in many ways. Same thing, you can see here, fees that associate with this location, device that's installed here, notes, logs, some essential information. Same goes on devices side. You can see your hardware, different statuses. Your hardware is in. You have your own internal deployment status, your network status that's customly calculated for Helium. Going into Polish brand here, owner, location, network configuration, diagnostics section where you can see earnings of this specific device, what the activity this device has produced, fees associated with this device, connected directly to users or organizations that you're paying for. And then all of this users, locations, and devices data pretty much feeds into payout reports, where you can calculate a payout report based on the commission you specify for user or organization. Go into that specific payout report, review each and every specific payout item, as we call it, and request raw earnings data. For instance, that's something that we built for Helium with their move to Solana and Oracles. It's pretty hard for deployers to see behind the wheel how all of the data is calculated, so you can just request data from here. And then clicking the Start Processing button will send you into payments, which I don't have a view for you at the moment to show, but it's essentially going to allow you to process all of your payments based on the payment method each specific individual user has within their account. So that system looks at all of our system looks at all of your users, groups them based on payment methods. Say you have 100 users, 50 of them are paid in bank accounts, fiat, and 50 of them are paid on Solana. So that will create two groups of people and just process all of the fiat payments to one group and all of the Solana payments to other group. Super simple, super straightforward. You get all of the transactions receipts back into Relay, so it's all accounted for you. Whatever you need to use it for taxes or for other purposes of accounting, you're happy, and welcome to do that. So again, really the idea here is to avoid the complexities that wireless bring and just simplify wireless in many ways. And I know it on a lot. It's at large sitting on sort of operational side at the moment, because you have the CRM with all the users. But that's exactly what we're also going to be building at large for actually technical stuff as well, for your field operations, and for people that are going to building it out. Issues and ticketing, and how can you send all of the data between your team and that data be just in one platform rather than having these different separate places where you have to keep track of things and you always lose stuff and always lose data, and God forbid using like paper and pen pencil these days, which unfortunately a lot of ISPs are still using with their friends that serving locations. So really, if we want to, if you're happy to expand to that, but something that we really ground ourselves in is just simplifying to the whatever lengths possible this entire process.
That's an amazing run through. Yeah, I mean that captures most of the needs of a large deployer: cash, fiat payments, or a crypto type settlement process, along with tracking all the assets. I mean, I can remember managing my fleets and running Python scripts and handling private keys in a command line interface. Very sketchy. Don't recommend that. So this is definitely a better option. And I like to see the emphasis on the large deployers. I'm curious. You talk to a lot of large deployers. Besides the overall complexity inherent in managing a fleet, and we've talked about all those complexities, I'm curious what other pain points you see for large deployers, maybe outside of that or within that, whatever you think. What are the other pains? Where do you see your platform headed? Maybe you could talk in general about that.
That's a great question, Steve. Something that plays up very nicely for our own hand is that wireless has so many pain points in so many different directions. And that's, I think, why we're all building here. And, that's such a great community of builders and DIY and traditional wireless in general, because it's one of those fundamental technologies that all of us need. Humanity won't survive, or it's going to be so hard for humanity to exist without, robust communications between each other on long distances. And I think that, going back to your question, operations and management is one thing. It's like assuming you have deployed your hardware, but the actual deployment process is something that a lot of traditional wireless is suffering with, because, you know, not to say that there's no tools on the market. There's definitely tools, and wireless has been for a long time as a technology, and as a set of technologies, I should say. And people have found ways to create specific applications to cover specific use cases and specific problems. But we actually see that as a sort of larger problem, because you have so many different apps that you have to keep track of as a deployer, and that, as a company, puts you in a position where you have actually to hire more people in specific departments, and those people specifically run specific parts of the business and specifically use specific softwares to do those specific parts. And that just increases your headcount, increases your your spending as a company. And as you said yourself, Steve, very interesting part, it decreases your focus on actually building out coverage, high-end coverage. All of these management things, all of these things of and questions of how do I deploy and where do I deploy and how do I maintain that deployment, just sort of creates this bubble of problems that you as a team have to pretty much solve on a day-to-day basis, and input these third-party applications in that equation, every issue that can be found with those third-party applications. And many times it's internal software, like you said, Python scripts is internal software. Take larger companies to actually run front ends and back ends to operate their networks. That plugs an entire engineering team into their business, and that's a whole nother set of expenses you have to handle. As one of the, and I can rant about it for hours. I've been through so many calls with traditional and decentralized wireless deployers. There's so many issues we can talk about it. I think one of the, if you guys are interested, you can go into our website. There's a roadmap page, and we literally lay out quarter by quarter what we're going to be building. To give you a bit of a glimpse in near future, I think it goes back to one of the interesting parts that we unraveled about traditional wireless. We do believe that bridge is going to come very soon. And I think that, with Relay's hyper focus on large scale deployers, it's only natural for us to go into traditional wireless world and start helping those folks as well. Obviously our entire focus right now is DY, making sure that DY deployers are covered, and that's probably going to drag up until the end of the year. And then early next year, we would love to start working. We're planning to start working on, helping with technology that we built for DY, start helping the traditional wireless folks as well. And the interesting part is a lot of people trying to differentiate the two. Traditional wireless dinosaurs, take them out. And then DY, this new, unicorn people in purple world that do all of these funny things and so forward thinking. A lot of processes are actually the same. You build network in the same exact way. Yeah. I hate to bake the fairy tale for you, but that's the same thing. And so just allowing them to use the same set of tools, maybe tweaking them a bit to ensure that the traditional infrastructure is covered would be only natural step for us.
I love it. Yeah, traditional wireless is not bad, right? I mean,
not at all.
We built the same networks. It's the same processes at the end of the day. The stuff I would like to see gone from traditional wireless are the traditional wireless version of taxi medallions. And they're there. Mm-hmm. The more you understand this industry, the more you see the taxi medallion type of capture happening. And that's what I'd love to see go away. And I would love if decentralized wireless ushers in this sort of WISP or wireless ISP renaissance. And you see this explosion in smaller scale operators, between a two-man team to up to a dozen people, very regionally focused. That would be an amazing outcome to bring that to light. And I'd love to see your tooling natively support this new era of servicing wireless networks. So that's I'd love to see it. Thanks for taking the time, Sean. Any closing thoughts here, Sean?
No, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head, Steve. This renaissance, I think Elijah's empowering it. We're empowering it. There's going to be a renaissance where we're abstracting away dinosaur-like prehistoric stuff that traditional wireless, these big telecoms are doing. And I think that's the most important part. Like when people think about decentralization, we're not entirely trying to start new cults and new systems of how things work. We're just trying to make things more efficient, like distribute power from the uppers, and more people can help do it. So bullish that you're here, Elijah, and excited to see what Relay has to do when we scale up to become the next biggest MNO in the US. So
Exactly. Excited to be on this journey with you guys, and super excited for everything you change and you improve at XNet. So keep it up, we keep it up, and we're all gonna win.
Right on.
Closing up in crypto terms. Walk me, we're all gonna make it.
LFG. See you guys next week.
All right.
Thanks,
everyone.
Elijah.